All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine, Women, and Words. I am Michelle, and with me, of course, is Diana.
Hello.
And we have been chatting before for a few minutes before we even started recording, and we can already tell it's going to be an amazing episode. And we have author Harper Kincaid with us, and we're going to be talking about, oh my gosh, my mind just can't, I was going to say To Kill a Mockingjay, which is
That's
the
okay. We
first
can talk
book.
about that too. We can talk about both. We can talk about both. It's all good.
But the whole reason why here, of course, is to talk about A Midsummer Night's Scheme. And we absolutely have to dive into the title in a moment. But thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited to have you with us.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. This is like, almost as good as a shot of morphine in the ass at the end of a day. So,
I think
feel
that
so
needs to be our
special.
slogan.
I think so. I think so, as one does. Yeah. There's a funny story behind that one, but that's for another time. But anyway, thanks for having me.
And you all can't see because it's audio only, but we have Lilo with us who
Yes.
who isn't she may at some point judge us and give us her judgy face, but she is the only person that judges. This is a judgment-free circle, but Lilo does judge everyone.
Everyone,
But, but
myself
speaking
included.
of that, well, Lilo's looking very lovingly at you right now, as if you are, the schnack, as they would say. But I also have two dogs who sometimes get a little loud. So if that gets in the way of your audio, just let me
Oh
know.
gosh, no. We
Okay.
have kids,
All right.
dogs, cats,
This is why
husbands.
I love, my podcasters. Like, they're just chill, they're just like, I've got this in my basement. I've got this going on in my home. There's construction. There's this, and we're fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think that's the thing I love about podcasting in general is the fact that at least the ones that are not like video,
Yeah.
we're just like, let's just talk. I
Okay.
just love having conversations. I love picking the brains of other authors and
Absolutely.
just relaxing. I always look forward to our episodes because it's a relaxing,
Yes.
fun girls authors night.
Absolutely. It works for me. So let's fire away.
So
No question
so
off
for
limit.
readers who may not yet be familiar, of course, with A Midsummer Night's Scheme, would you be able to give a synopsis of it?
Yeah, sure. So it is the sequel to A Kill a Mockingjay, as you had mentioned earlier, but you do not need to have read the first one to read the second one. I like to make sure you're pretty much caught up within the first chapter. But we continue with the two protagonists, Quinn and her cousin sister Daria. They're both sort of, I guess I would say, they're in their mid to late 20s. So is that like young millennial at elder Gen Z? I'm not quite, or zillennial or whatever they're calling it. I don't know what that, anyway, but they live in the town of Vienna, Virginia, which I actually do live in. It's a real place. And
I didn't know that.
it's real.
One of
It's
my questions was about Vienna.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you all the good. It's funny because people who are from here, they're like, you captured Vienna, but you zhuzhed it up a little. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. So they're living in town. She's Quinn co-owns a bookstore with her parents and is, obsessed with all things books. Obviously, Sister Daria, she's trying to become an Anglican nun, even though her politics and her libido are probably not aligned with that profession. That being said, the main sort of mystery is the former playboy, Lothario, fuckboy, whatever you want to call it, of town. I love it because you're letting me curse, because in Cozy Mystery Land, you're not allowed to. And I just want to say fuckboy, a million times. But I'm like, Lothario. Anyway, but so he comes back in town. He's now a big Broadway star. He's come back in town to sort of start a theater and root himself. But all of the broken hearts that he had left behind are not happy that he's back. And so he ends up dying in a very graphic way, but not violent per se, just interesting. And so then people are trying to figure out who murdered him. And there's a group of three women that are his the exes. And my protagonists don't get involved until Quinn's brother is also then targeted. So now we have like a serial killer. And so he does not get killed, but it's like a close attempt. So that's when she's like, oh, hell no, we got to figure out who this is. And so, antics and capers ensue. So that's a little bit longer than it's not like your typical log line or tagline, but you get the longer version. That's what it's about. And it's fun. It's a caper. It's, even though I'm sitting here talking about like gross, like, misogynistic behavior and violent deaths, most of that's not on the page. So it ends up just being, the banter amidst the crazy.
Which we all love. We all love and adore. Now, one question I have, and there is no stupid questions on this podcast, so I'm just going to throw
never.
it out there and ask it. What differentiates a standard murder mystery from a cozy murder mystery? Because we hear it all the time, but it's never been truly defined.
No, it's a great question. And it's something that when I decided to come into this genre from romance, because I started off in romance, I was like, okay, so it's like, you would be great with cozy mysteries. I said, oh, okay, I'll start that. Okay. Look up, go Google cozy mysteries. And so usually cozy mysteries, none of the sex or violence is on the page, which is typical of traditional mysteries as well. But usually you have a female amateur sleuth who's the head protagonist, sometimes older, like a Miss Marple or anything from an Agatha Christie. But not always. And in addition to, like, the sleuthing is not her main job. It's very rare that she's a detective. It's she's sort of got that cottagecore life, meaning like she's into books or knitting or baking or, something that's like very, I can never pronounce the word. It's hygge, like HYGE.
Oh yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that word either.
I think it's hygge, but someone will come and correct
Hookah?
us.
Like the hookahs?
Not a hookah.
No, it's like the Swedish, isn't it? It's a Swedish word, right? It's like a
Swedish or Danish, or I think it's Swedish. I think you're right. It's basically this sort of adjective or word for like cozy comfort. Like let's get under the blanket with our hot chocolate and like enjoy ourselves with a fire.
Huh.
So imagine that sort of feel. That's a cozy mystery. I mean, and it could still be in a beach town, by the way. It's more about this homey, it's the way I like to say it, it's like Hallmark movies without the sweet saccharine Christmas fetish. That's how I like to, although there can be Christmas ones there, but it's a little bit more idiosyncratic versus whitewashed G-rated. Like it's G-rated, but like with weird and quirky and, like, let's just put it this way. I just went to a conference and they had what someone called the poison lady. This lady's job is literally, she's a former pharmacist. She knows how to poison people 10 ways to Sunday. And her job, and she's like this nice old lady, right? And she goes up there and teaches murder mystery writers how to poison people or how to kill people off. And this will show up in the autopsy, but this not. These are the tests you'd have to order. This, like, she's a dangerous person. Sitting there with a sweater set, like talking about this. It's like, so it's it's through that lens. So traditional,
Yes.
traditional, well, usually the lead is the detective or working on the police department, or is the criminalist, someone who's working on the scene. It's a little bit more direct involvement. This is more of a adorably nosy neighbor. If that
and
works.
the poison lady at the conference, there is a cozy mystery in there somewhere.
I'm surprised that someone hasn't done it, because I mean, maybe they feel like that's her story to tell, but writers are thieves. So we'll take, you take it, you change it around a little bit. But yeah, I was just taking pictures of the slides that she was having up there. And of course, everything is like, she's got like the mimeograph paper from like 1965 with the purple. You guys are too young to know this, but it's like a whole other, when she's putting them up there. But her knowledge is so great that you're just like,
That's awesome.
It is.
I mean, terrifying, but awesome.
Terrifyingly awesome. That's exactly
yes.
right. Oh,
I want to be her apprentice. I'm just
What'd you say?
joking, not really.
What'd you say? I didn't hear.
Oh, I said I kind of want to be her apprentice.
Yeah, I think we all do. It's a standing room only. That's like one of the few, like, everyone has their little things that they go for the panels, like it's standing room only. Like I went like a good 40 minutes before she started, so I would have my seat. It was terrific. Anyhow, let me tell you, my search history is like, if I'm ever accused of anything, I'm going to jail because of all the research you get to do on how to kill people.
I just love it. There's so many times, I think as writers, I have myself included, where we're looking up the most random things on our internet. And I'm so glad that my husband doesn't use my computer or my phone for my Google search history, because it would be bad.
I think he just needs to stay in your good graces. I think that's all that's
true. That is true. We have had
happy wife,
before.
stay alive. We'll just alter the saying a little bit.
You know what?
That's actually a bumper sticker in the making. I think that you're missing out on a good side hustle. I appreciate
just beneath the "Don't worry, I'm an author" bumper sticker.
Sure, that's the disclaimer that we'll use.
Right. That's. I still maintain that Google needs a little box to check that says "I am a writer."
I think that works. And the funny thing is that I don't think he has it anymore, but for a while he had like top secret clearance. And I'm like, he actually had to put like, my wife does this. Like, so if you are doing background checks on like, because, we have the same server at home, whatever. And so it's come up where like, when I wanted to get my like TSA clearance, and they were like, well, do you have any aliases? I'm like, yes, I have a couple. Like, they were like, looking at me like I had like 3 heads or something. And I'm like, no, just an author. But it was, isn't it the nice thing about being in the book world, whether you're an author, whether you're an author podcaster, whether you're a good literary citizen, you get to live in your world and like endless amount of other worlds, right?
Yes,
absolutely.
Sure.
So I, in my non-creepy website stalking research, I read your article in Reader's Digest of writing cozy mysteries with an edge, and how to introduce uncomfortable topics into these mysteries. And I just thought it was such an interesting article with such great advice.
Thank you.
Writers. And was that advice that you kind of went into it already knowing, or is that something you learned yourself through the writing process?
I think it's always both, because you can sort of, I always call it like the coffee filter effect. You can know something intellectually here on the top, but until you're doing it, then that's when it seeps down. That's when you get it filters through and it becomes part of your cellular network. It's like, you can know that, okay, I can't have something violent on the page. I don't want to bring people down with and I don't want to make it trauma porn, for example. It's meant to entertain. It's meant to be light, but that doesn't mean that there doesn't have to be substance, and that doesn't have to be character development and all that other stuff. I learned it more also. So when I was first writing To Kill a Mockingjay, and even a little bit with Midsummer Night's Scheme, Quinn was the first protagonist. Like, she was the only one for the first book. And then for the second one, I divided it between her voice and Sister Daria. And I did that primarily because I thought Sister Daria was a lot more interesting. I was getting bored of Quinn. And I realized that, so like, even though I knew intellectually, yes, you're supposed to sort of incorporate these things like sort of in this organic way, I was making her pretty bland, like not having lived a lot of life, and not really, she was just sort of like, she had this crush and she loved her books, and it sort of was on the kind of surface, versus Daria was the one who had more of the past, and she had a broken heart, and she's a social worker, and she's worked in lockdown facilities, and she's had a lot more touch her, and then she makes this huge 180 and negates so much of what she's about to supposedly become a nun and work with dogs. Like, it's just like, you're more interested in someone who isn't so perfect on the page. And so that's the short answer. I don't have a short answer. Let's just forget about that. No short answer. but that's really like, so that's why when I split them up for the second book, in terms of having the points of view go back and forth. And also it was I think every book is a writing school. I think you learn with every book. You get better and better. So
I love that. I absolutely love that because I'm somebody who has to constantly be challenged, which I feel like that is my neurodivergent brain, maybe
Yes.
ADD. I'm recently coming to terms with the fact that I am neurodivergent. I am not.
I have another article then for you. Look it up. I think it's Crime Reads. It was how to write neurodivergent characters without resorting to stereotypes. And if this series had unfortunately, the series is not going to be continued, which is a freaking bummer, because the publishers decide not to do it. I might do something else with it. We'll see. But in the third book, they both were finally going to get, my Quinn was going to be diagnosed with spectrum disorder, autism spectrum disorder, level 1. And Sister Daria was going to be with ADHD. And because I am highly ADHD. And and that's, I'd say that, with my day job, and I was talking to you about this before we started, I'd say about at least half or 2/3 of my clientele is like queer neurodivergent young adults. And a lot of those things just seem to come together. And as far as you being a later diagnosed, woman with ADHD, like, are you on TikTok? Because there are tons of videos waiting for you to tell you all about your journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok, and that's one of the wonderful things about TikTok is it's about like the journey and like, hey, and that was one of the places where I'm like, oh, I do this stuff. This is me. And I was one of those kids where I believe it's the Lost Girls, I think is what they called it, where these kids who came up in the 80s, because I'm on that cusp. I'm in between Gen X and millennial. I'm right there at that cusp. And it was just that, oh, she's just hyperactive. Don't give her any sugar, no caffeine. She's just really hyperactive. And that's what I grew up with. And it was, as I got older, it was no.
Well, because back then they thought it was only for boys.
Yeah, exactly.
How were you
it wasn't until,
how did you do in school?
I'm terrible with test taking. Not a good test taker. I still am not a good test taker. I have an actual learning disability where I have I forget what it's called, but basically my short-term memory doesn't always click with my long-term memory. So there's that audio like lapse.
Yeah, that the processing. Well, there's auditory processing disorder, but yours is a working memory issue. So they might.
Once it gets into my brain. Once it gets into my brain, it's there. Like I know so many. You and I could do so well on trivia nights because I know so much random trivia.
We would slay. Let's just say
totally
slay sister.
No crumbs left. No crumbs left. Because I know so much random trivia that it just
let me ask you, what did you have for lunch today? You won't know. But here's the lyrics for a song. I'm going to give you 3 notes. You're going to get it.
Yep.
That's
it. For me, I didn't learn well auditorially. So, but if I saw it on the page,
you're fine.
I was fine. And so books, I ended up gravitating towards books, anti-math.
Yeah. Oh, I can't math. You don't become a psychotherapist if you can math. It's just one of those things.
I was a paralegal, and I would just hand over the invoices to the lawyer. So I was just like, I'm not doing this.
No,
I'll do it. My math is going to be off. And I'm telling you right now, because I don't math. I did not get into this so I could do math.
Well, they should have you for research. I mean, with your kind of a brain, if you got interested in a subject. Exactly. So that was where the characters were going to go next, is because, I mean, if I had $1 for every, late diagnosed someone identifying as female or female at birth, I could retire, because it would just, well, because most of the people who don't get diagnosed till later, they did well enough in school. They weren't necessarily straight A kids, but like the things that were their preferred ones, they did great with, and the things that were not preferred or what have you, it wasn't a tank, but it wasn't as great. And it's this combination of like, you have the ADHD, so it's hard to organize, but then the anxiety kicks in, and and that gives you enough of an adrenaline thing to get whatever your tasks are done. And you go like that until you can't do it anymore. And I saw this happen with my older daughter, who I had tested and everything much earlier, because I'm just someone who loves to do that kind of stuff. I mean, I didn't do it myself, but someone else did that. And they did not highlight, they said, oh, it could be ADHD, but it's really more of anxiety. And she'll be fine. You just need to do this. And this was back in the 90s, or excuse me, the early 2000s, mid 2000s. So it hasn't been that long where things have just really, I'm going into my psychotherapist brain versus my author brain, I could tell. But, it was through her. And, she thinks that she's, level 1, autism spectrum disorder because of TikTok. And I'm like, go get tested, if it helps you, that's great. So I'm really all for that. There's a lot of people who get there's a lot of stigma, and I'm just so over it. I'm over it. I'm like, let's get everybody whatever help that they need. Everyone should have a therapist. I just like, you're born, you get a birth certificate and a therapist, because you're going to need it.
I love that. And as somebody who is currently in therapy, it's a very necessary thing. And it's always good where, even if you don't go all the time, where you come back like periodically, going through tough stuff. I recently went through some tough stuff, and it was just like, one of the things I had this and was crying, and my husband was like, what can I do for you? What can I do to help you? And my first thing was, want therapy.
Yeah.
That was like the first words out of my mouth. I'm going to therapy.
Good for you.
And we're going to have a kid. And we're going to adopt. And it was like my two things. I'm like, therapy and adoption. Those were my two gut check things I wanted. And
you're lucky that you knew that. You're lucky. You're so self-aware that you were able to like feel that. That's amazing.
I think it also comes with a survival instinct too. I think that survival instinct of having gone through some shit. And one of the things I want to circle back to you is how I love the fact that you mentioned that you're a psychotherapist, and having psychotherapist brain, and having that in as a writer, I think is so beneficial in so many ways.
It's funny you say that, because when this series, when I got the thing from the publisher saying this wasn't going to happen anymore, and like I felt sorry for myself for like a day or two, and then I was like, okay, it's fine, I'll let everyone know. And like I had like a slew of people say, okay, all right, now will you do the deep, weird psychological thriller that we know that's in you? And I was like, I did not know you felt this way. And they're like, this light caper stuff is fabulous. But can we just do something like, can we get into all your real weirdness? And I'm like, oh God, do you really want to leave? But yeah, I started off, believe it or not, as a historian. That was what my first, and it sounds like I'm trying to do a brag, and I'm not, but this is, so the first master's is in gender history, and I was going the historian route, and I loved it because, research, but eventually, like my thing was like utopian communities and social movements. And I was always fascinated, like, okay, I get what you've had this injustice for hundreds of years or decades or whatever it is. Why this person or this group at this time with this revolt, why did that start the movement versus some of these other things before? Like I was interested sort of in the psychology of it. And I kept getting told, that's not the questions we ask here, and they're like, you might want to consider. And so I've always been fascinated with people's motivations, and I have a great deal of empathy for what people consider their flaws. I think that that's what makes us human and delightful and idiosyncratic and, book worthy. I was, and I don't want to, shit on Quinn, because she's delightful, and she was going to have her own sort of arc, but like basically I was going to give her everything she wanted, and then she was going to have a crisis, because do I want everything that's exactly what I've been given? But where was I going with that? Just, I guess the point is that, like, for example, for Sister Daria, how does someone who considers herself really anti-church, liberal, part of, straight, a cishet gen woman that, still had belonged to her LGBTQIA, high school group, decides to become an Anglican nun, I mean, it's her family's church that she grew up with, and there are people that she knows, but it's not the Episcopalians who are like, let's let everyone in and let's let everyone be, a priest or what have you. This was the thing that split the church, right? Was the whole thing about, gay representation and women and what have you. And I was interested, what the heck happens to someone who will like put that aside in order to go in this different path. And it was frankly she was in such a desperate place when she made the decision that the things that she thought were her values all of a sudden became very conveniently put aside. And I think that, honestly, I think that's something that we've all done at different times. We try to do better. And once you're conscious of it, then hopefully you're like, oh shit, you kind of figure things out. I think people are trying to align themselves more with their thoughts, their actions, having it all. I think that's what some of the overcorrection that we're doing is happening. I'm all for it because that's what needs to happen. It's one way for so long. And people are like, oh, it's too much the other way. I said, yeah, but that's history. There's always an overcorrection. There's always sort of this like rabid sort of don't do this anymore. I said, that's the natural thing that happens in human behavior. And then people integrate it and they do it. And then it becomes just as if it's always been that way, And so for her, she gets her heart broken. She doesn't know what she wants. She doesn't know what she wants to do in her life. She has a quarter life crisis. And she had fallen in love with the idea of like, it was The Sound of Music when she was a little girl. Then it was Call the Midwife, because I was watching that during the pandemic, like on like a loop. I don't know if it's on BBC. It's fantastic. It's just charming. It's quirky and wonderful. And so she has this sort of utopic image of like cloistered life. And so since she was already Anglican, and that there's really, by the way, there is no abbey in that's one thing that's not in Vienna. Everyone's like, is St. Guinevere house here? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I said, I have the location in my head of where it would be, but no, it's not here. Although it is based on a monastery in upstate New York, and it's a bunch of monks who raised German shepherds. So there is a place. So that's what that came from. And she just didn't want to deal with men anymore. So she's like, I'll just deal with dogs and other women and I'll be fine. And, she's in that place, and she's going to have to come to terms with life and things she believes and the things that she says she believes. And eventually she's going to have to make those adjustments, but I wanted her to make some really big mistakes in her life. I wanted her to do some things that you're kind of reading and be like, what the heck are you doing? And I think that that's the one thing, like when I'm getting really lovely letters from people and emails saying, oh, what does she get? Because I left like the main story, obviously the murder and the killer are obviously that's solved, but the side stories of some things that are happening with Daria and a couple of other people are left as a cliffhanger, which if I had known that the state, I would have never done that to people. And I feel terrible. They're like, why did you do that? I'm like, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. So I'll figure it out. I'm toying between either shopping it out with either another publisher or honestly sort of writing like something longer than an epilogue, but shorter than a novel or novella. And like subscribe to the website and you want that piece, then you get it. So I'm probably going to just do that so that, people can have an extra little slice of the journey and have that sense of conclusion.
And I love that when doing the whole signing up and you get this story or this epilogue or what have you, because that's something I've been playing with from my newsletter as well, just having that.
It's not my own. It's really, I'm stealing that from the romance community. And I never did it as a romance author, but I mean, they all do that. And because
I've seen so many people do that I've been like, maybe I should do that. Yeah.
It garners some loyalty, but it's really because a lot of things are out of our control as authors. Like you can have 1 million people on Instagram, and then something can happen and you're blocked out, or all of a sudden that's not popular anymore and it becomes TikTok, or, whatever it is. And so that's something you're sort of chasing. But your newsletter list, this is what all the PR marketing people in the book business tell me, your newsletter list is yours. And so, and those are subscribers. Those are people who are like, and I'm always really thankful, because I hate getting mail that I don't like or emails I don't like. So when someone opts in for my email, I only do it like a few times a year. So I don't really, barrage people with it. But they're like, I want your content. I want to know what's going on with you. And, whether I like you personally or a fan of your books or a combination, I'm in. So it's really powerful. It's, and people obviously they do Pantheon and other things, Substack and things like that. I don't have the kind of time to do sort of that regular sort of, oh, pay this amount and you'll get regular content. That I can't do. But the other stuff sounds like a good option. So you've been toying with that idea for yourself?
Yeah, I've been toying with it because it's just I've got like, as writers, we're always writing. It's always a thing, whether it's little stories that are connected to our books, backstory.
Love that. People love that.
All that sort of thing. So yeah, I've just kind of been playing with it. And
that's world building, because whether, maybe it's not set off in a sci-fi sort of situation or Narnia, but it's your world that you've created, and people get attached to your side characters and your main characters, and they want the prologue, and they want the 10 years in down the road, they want all sorts of things, oh, this was the thing that happened over Christmas, this was the thing, this was Halloween, and this in my location, you can have a lot of fun with it.
Plus, it's a great opportunity for those scenes that you love and you love them, but they don't make it into the book.
That's right.
And just to know that they don't necessarily have to just live in your mind or on your hard drive.
Exactly. Although most of the things that don't make it usually are, there's a reason, but I hear what you're saying. Like there are people who really just go into the deep dive as they're writing. Up until now, I've been really deadline driven because it was contract. So I didn't have the time to sort of really write the full thing the way I've wanted. So now I basically said to my agent, I'm like, I have 3 or 4 different ideas. I do not want to, I usually would sell them on spec. I've got the first 3 or 4 chapters, I've got an outline, and I've sold it that way and given advance, which is honestly just to get to that point in my career. Trust me, it's not like a huge advance. It's not like, pool money or something, but it's like, it's nice. And I said to her, then the deadlines are always, especially with more genre fiction or commercial fiction, they want it faster. They want it, and, I can do that. But once I got into the day job again, because I had gotten my social work degree, I worked in for a little while, and then I ran from it for like 4 years because it's a long story. It was just really intense, the kind of job I had. And I was like, maybe this was not meant for me at all. And I have come back and I love it, but I don't have the kind of time that I have. And, I do love my day job, but then I don't, so I think my agent's like, okay, well, before you write a whole freaking book, let's share with me, like, do the proposal thing to me and let's talk about it. And then we'll see what project, and then I'm going to finish it and then send it off, and then hopefully it auctions off. And
I love that about agents, because when people have this idea when you come into the industry that, okay, you're going to write whatever you want now. Whatever you write, that's all you, but it's you and your agent. Yes. You're running this by your agent. They're the first one that you talk to.
Hopefully,
my dog is sneezing, so I'm gonna have to.
Oh, I love it. It's okay. They got to do
the poor little thing. I think she got some sawdust up her nose.
See, as one does in your household. No, you're right. Hopefully you have a good, I always think of that scene from Jerry Maguire, I Want the Quan, hopefully you have the Quan with your one with your agent, that kind of thing. I mean, some people are really buddy with their agents. I love mine, but we're not like just hanging out and talking shit. We're not going to be like, did you see this documentary? Did you see what's going on in Succession? We're not doing that. She's too busy. But what I love about, I have so many things I love about her, but like, she gets back to me so fast.
Mhm.
Like, she does that for every single client that she has.
Mhm.
It's Jill Marshall with Marshall Lyons. And she's very direct. And
Mhm.
some people don't like that. Some people want their hand held and they want to be told that they're pretty and stroke my hair. And I have other people to do that. You know, I don't, you want someone who's like, this is what's, you know, I do think though, I was about to say she's going to tell you what's sort of selling, what isn't selling. And I think,
Mhm.
yes, I agree with you that there is help for that. And that's a good thing to do. I'm at a place though now where I'm realizing that my entire writing career, I've been writing for what I thought the market would want. Doesn't mean I didn't want to write the book. Doesn't mean
Mhm.
it wasn't mine, but I always led with what the market was. I'm
Mhm.
kind of in an experimental place in my life where I want to sort of do it the other way. Like, I want to figure out what's something that I truly want to read that I'm not seeing, or I'm seeing it, but they're not doing it the way I would want to do it. And I want to approach it that way, you know, because I'm now, maybe it'll be a big waste of time. I don't know. Maybe, you know, I'll be told that, oh, nope, we can't sell this. Nothing happens. And I'll eat that shit sandwich if I have to. But I kind of like, since it isn't something that's paying my bills, it is still like, I take it seriously. It's a vocation of mine, but it's one that just doesn't really feed my family. So, you know, not in any, you know, serious way. So I do have a little bit more room to sort of play with it, you know, but you do have to take yourself seriously. You know, I get a lot of, you know, beginning writers or people who want to write and they're so scared to write. Um, and I'm like, you know, just start doing it scared. Let, you know, my first 2 or 3 books, it was with a really small publisher. I got in right when ebooks were becoming popular,
Mhm.
and it's romance, and like, pardon the pun or the really tacky metaphor, but it was like a sausage factory. Like, they just couldn't get stuff out fast enough, and everything was like $2.99, 99 cents. You know, they were just trying to get, because everyone, like, they couldn't get enough content fast enough because you had all these romance writers or readers who were downloading things on their Kindle, and then they
Mhm.
could just, you know, binge read. And um I read my first 2 or 3 books and I'm like, okay, I see something there, but it's a little cringy for me, you know? And if I had waited till my manuscript was perfect, I'd be 10 years later and not having written anything,
Mhm.
you know? So I did it messy and it's gotten better. I
Getting
don't know.
that first draft out there is so important. Just not worrying about how it's going to look. That first draft.
Yes,
It's supposed to be crap. That first draft, it's supposed to be
exactly.
horrible. I
Yeah,
can't believe anybody is going to read this type of book.
I agree with you. And I think that comes from the fear of making a mistake. I do think it's still a bit of a gendered thing. I know that we're all going through this, you know, gender is a construct, and in a lot of ways, yes, it is, absolutely. But before we got to this point, you had all of us 70s and 80s babies
Mhm.
who, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it was so afraid to make the mistake, so afraid to fail.
Mhm.
And that fear of failure, I do think that's something that happens in our school systems, that
Mhm.
it's more important to get the right answer versus the process of the learning and the thinking. You know, it's much more product versus process. And because it's so test oriented and standardized test oriented, that um, I think it's made generations of people who are afraid to take those chances. And I don't think it's the only reason. That's a very reductive argument, but it's just to say that um, I got into my 40s,
Mhm.
and that was, you know, a while ago. And I was like, I hit 44 and I was like, what are you waiting for? You've
Mhm.
been wanting to be a writer since you were 4 years old. It's 40 fucking years later. What are you waiting for? And finally, I realized that my fear of disappointing myself was greater than my fear of writing a piece of shit. And so that's what finally got me to write a first novella and to get out there. And it's been a very slow climb. And I'm now, after like, so I'm 52 now, I'm now at the point just now where I'm not worried about the market so much. I'm not going to say I'm not going to worry about it at all. I'm just saying I'm not going to worry about it as much. And I am not going to worry about how it's going to be received. I just want to write at least my next couple books or TV treatments, because I'm working on some stuff like that. I just want to write the stuff that I really want to see, and I want to make it weird, and I want to make it, because what am I waiting for? Right? Like, worst that they could say is no, fuck it. So I don't know. I hope that if someone's listening who's thinking about writing, especially us gals, just do it. How many mediocre men are out there doing things that are half as good and think that they're fantastic? I'm just like, I want that confidence of a white mediocre man. That's a bumper sticker, by the way. That's not mine. I love that line, and I'm gonna steal that for a little while.
I love that line too, and it's so very, very, very true.
It is true, for sure. I love how we all have our dogs. Now I'm missing my puppies, but mine are not as well mannered as yours. So, I have 2 girls who are out of the house, and we have 2 dogs. We're ridiculous. We're those people. And so my husband spoils them terribly. And the first one is very polite, but the second one is feral. And she takes up everything. Anyway.
Well, usually I have the cat that decides to walk across. But I don't know. I've gotten a new desk and I've rearranged the furniture, and I just don't think it speaks to him anymore. Like,
he will. He just doesn't change. He doesn't like that you've changed his
No, he doesn't.
No, and he's going to let you know in his own way. He will try.
He is not passive aggressive. He is all aggressive.
This is a cat world that we're just living in, for sure. Right?
Yes. And it's very frustrating because I'm the one that saved his life. I found him in the woods behind my house.
And he thinks we're honored to do so.
And I swear he thinks like that I took him away. Like, he like blames me.
You think so?
I promise you won't like it. Like,
you know what? Let him just like sit outside for like 5 minutes, little Mr. like fancy pants. He's like, wait a second, where's my air conditioning? Like, where's my food? That's right here. Like, I can't live with the wild ones anymore. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I let him wander into we had the garage door open from inside, and the door was open and he was sniffing. I was like, go on, it's fine.
Yeah.
And he like took 2 steps out, and I hit the button to close the big garage door, and that cat could not get back inside fast enough. I'm like,
he was afraid he was going to get locked out of the kingdom, and he was going to be on the other side of the moat. Like, oh no, I got to get back to my rich life. Exactly.
It's like, no, wait, my blanket.
That's it. Thank you. Oh my God. I know. In our next lives, can we come back as our pets? Is that
please?
Right?
Yes. I want to be a rich person's pet.
Yeah. A rich person's pet. Exactly. With no children. My God.
I just want to come back. We have 2 cats named Fish and Chips, and Chips.
Oh my God, that's the cutest.
And Chips is the.
Oh my God. You need to write a cozy with that.
Yes.
Oh, that's true. That's true, because Chips was the wild one that we found. We had Fish first, and I'm like, well, obviously, like the name just is right there. You have to do it. But Fish is like my daughter is
a cat named Fish. I mean, that is just fantastic. I love that.
Well, in all fairness, he did come with the name, but we're like, well, obviously we're not changing it. Like the kids wanted to change it. I'm like, no, his name is Fish.
That's his name. That's his name. I love that.
And he just has the best life. It snuggles with my daughter, and sleeps on my husband's computer chair when he's not sitting at his desk. And I want your life.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
He yells at me until I turn on the sink so he can drink out of the sink instead of his water.
I'm telling you, they train us well. They really do. It's hysterical to me. And it's like, and you know what? You're happy to do it. That's what's crazy. That's love. Is like, Fine, I will rub your belly, like, and then mine. So I have a Bichon Frise and we have a combo Shih Tzu Bichon Frise. It was more Shih Tzu. And she's like Miss Frou Frou fancy pants looking, right? I mean, we don't do the crazy haircuts on her, she's just normal, but she will give us this look like the French comes out in her is what I say. It's like she almost like raises the eyebrow and be like, peasant, did I tell you to stop petting me? Did like you'll lean in for a kiss and she'll go like this if she's not in the mood. And I'm like, you're from Indiana. You were born in a mill that I rescued you from in Indiana. And you're sitting here, all of a sudden you're in touch with your ancestral roots. Like, I don't think she's ridiculous, but we love her.
I wanted a long-haired dachshund for so long, and I wanted to do all the foo-foo stuff with the dog, but we've determined that if I pick out the dog, it's going to be my husband's dog. My husband picks out the dog, it's going to be my dog. And so I picked out our long-haired dachshund. Her name is Fizzgig, Fizzgig, and she is the biggest tomboy when it comes to everything. We have to have her hair cut like a puppy cut because it gets long and frizzy when it gets long, and I can't put bows in her. Anything that's like remotely girly on her, she like looks at me with disdain.
She's gender non-conforming and you just haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly her. I can't even brush her without an issue. Meanwhile, my husband, he can brush her and she'll be just fine with him, but nothing girly with her. And then I've got the other one, the smooth Lilo, the little one. Everything girly, everything blingy. She likes her sweaters. She loves all of that.
I have never seen a dog look so lovingly at somebody the way I just said. Like, I feel sorry for your husband because I don't think that anyone's getting in between.
He calls it, we have a codependency in his mind, and he's like, it's not healthy, this codependency.
Well, dachshunds have that. Dachshunds, they get very attached,
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard, I don't know if this is true, you educate me. I've heard that they kind of pick one person. Is that true? Or
they can, but with ours, they're mostly me. But when it comes to, like, at least Lilo, she's mostly me, but she does accept and appreciate my husband.
Yeah.
And Fizzgig, she's basically like, whichever one's feeding me and rubbing my belly.
That's exactly right. Well, if she's from the streets, she understands.
Exactly.
Oh gosh, I have to tell you this story from when I was a kid, really quick, super fast story.
Oh, I want to hear it.
About Bichon Frises, because I don't know if anyone remembers this from like maybe the early 90s. There is, and it might still be around. There was a toy called Puppy My Pocket, and they were like little.
Oh my God, I remember those. I haven't heard
so
that.
I collected those. Like, those are my thing when I was however old. Yeah. So I was learning all the breeds from those statues, and I was like looking through them, and I got to the Bichon Frise card. Yeah. And I was very excited, very proud. Mom, there is a dog called a Bitchin' Fries. And I thought it was okay to curse because it was a breed of a dog.
That's the best story. You guys are writing a book together with these adorable
Just random tangents from the podcast.
That's how old were you?
Oh gosh, I wanted maybe 8, maybe 7. It was before I learned the concept of
when you were young and cute and you can get away with it. Yeah. I remember saying a curse word to my mom at 4. This is the 70s. And she like grabbed me and was like washing my mouth out with soap. And that was the last. I mean, I didn't even know it was a curse word, it was one of those. I know it makes it sound like she's abusive. She was fine. It was just the 70s. But like, and it was like spring. So it had a really nasty taste anyway. But she gave me like a pixie stick afterwards because she felt bad. It's not as cute as your story. Your story is so much better. Sure.
Oh, my son, he's 7, and he was looking at something. He was reading something. I think I was like scrolling through Instagram reels on my phone, and he like leaned over to look at one about like motherhood, and it was like something about like going to like piss off mom or something just because it's fun. And
Yes.
reading it out loud, and he read going to piss off mom, and I was like, why did you just say it? And I started
I'm reading
laughing.
it.
He started, and he realized that wasn't,
Not the right word.
he started laughing, and I wish someone had recorded it because we were just rolling. My daughter was sitting there too. She started, it was like,
these are the things that you should write. So I don't know if you've ever heard this stuff, and I didn't do it, so I'm sure that no one else is going to do it either. But like these little moments, like write them down somewhere, because like we don't get to record these things. And like, thank goodness between all of us, everyone has a piece of different memory. But like, I'm telling you, in 5 years, you're not going to remember this, and something will come up with, and then you're like, oh my God, you used to be little and cute, and I loved you, and you weren't like, the attitude, it's really cute.
Oh, I'm not ready for that.
It's the reel. I actually just saw a reel where it was the mom who was like vacuuming, and the husband was behind her with their toddler, and literally puts the toddler down, puts like, I don't know, salt or sugar or sand like all over, and then the kid's playing because he's having the sensory experience, and then the husband like dashes out, and then she's like going to vacuum, and then she turns around and she sees the mess, and she just like crumbles.
That's where he got it from. Okay, I don't mean to cut you off. Reel,
and it said
my husband. I guarantee you, my husband saw that reel because I was vacuuming the other day. And all of a sudden I was like going down the hall, and all of a sudden he taps me on the shoulder and like points, and I turned around, and my daughter is holding the flour jar, and there's flour on the floor.
Oh, flour, FLOUR. Okay, I was like,
yes,
flour? Like
FLOUR, baking flour.
Yeah.
And there's flour like scattered on the floor, and she has this look on her face. She's like, no, it was Dad. No, I like, guarantee you he saw that.
I'm not the patsy for you, Father. No way. I am telling you, he saw that reel, because I just was like, there are men who are going to do that. They're going to think
facts. Because my first reaction was, what are you doing?
Sorry, thoughts and prayers, my love. Thoughts and prayers. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. So we have kept you far longer than 30 minutes.
It's okay. Listen, I know you're going to edit and you're going to have fun with it.
No, we're going to leave all of this here. This is just going to stay. This is the episode.
Listen, I had the best time. You girls are fantastic. And I hope that whatever I bring in the future, I'll just contact you myself and be like,
please do.
Yes.
I mean, absolutely. I know. You guys are fantastic. And I really,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everyone, if you would like to order your own copy of I keep wanting to say In a Midsummer's Night. Midsummer's Night Scheme. Yes. Please be sure to check our show notes. You can click on the link to our bookshop on bookshop.org and order your own copy. As always, bookshop.org supports our wonderful writers. It supports the podcast, but most importantly, supports all of the wonderful indie bookstores out there. And Harper, you're coming back. Like that's just,
oh my God. As if you could keep me away. And I'm going to send little snacks like for you, and then stuff for your dog or your cat in the future. And we'll all have snacks and like talk with crumbs in our mouths, and we're going to have a good time.
Yes.
You had me at snacks.
I know. Well, tell me, salty or sweet or combo, and I've got you. Don't you worry.
Oh, combo, baby. I'm all on the combos.
Have fun. Thank you for a great night. And
thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.